What is going on, Divas Nation? This is Gary Cook, and we're back with another episode of Divas Dive. As you can see, we changed up the scenery a little bit because we got the room a bit more comfy for when I'm watching all of these IPPVs that we're going to be covering for Shimmer, for Rise, and for everybody else. Because frankly, desk chair got uncomfortable, so we're trying a bit of a different location and seeing how it works this week. Let us know if you notice any issues with the sound or video quality compared to our previous episodes. But with all that out of the way, we are on to Rise Legendary. And that is a great name for this pay-per-view because it was legendary. We had a ton of great matches, a ton of just awesome. Everywhere we looked, it was a great night. I mean, cherry on the cake to make up for all the awfulness that WWE is doing with their women's division. But we'll talk about that in another video. Tonight, we are talking Rise and the amazing stuff that those women put out that was just magnifique. So the night kicked off with what was supposed to be Thunder Kitty versus Regina Honey Badger. I had picked Thunder Kitty for this one just due to my not being familiar with Regina and a lot of her work. So I was excited to see what she brought to the table and how this match went. But we got treated to a surprise of Session Moth Martina showing up to add herself to the match. And the match quickly became a three-way dance out of nowhere. That Session Moth did pick the win up in. It was an enjoyable match. Lots of interesting interactions between the three because they all had such wildly different personalities that watching them kind of mesh and work inside the ring was really fun to see. Because you had Thunder Kitty, who is basically a time traveler. Not really a time travel, but time lost, being a wrestler from like 1942. You had Honey Badger, who was just this feral, crazed woman. And you had Session Moth, who is the drunk raver chick, for lack of a better way to describe her. It was a really well done match. It was hysterical. It wasn't anything to write home about, but there wasn't anything that made you go, why am I watching this? It really highlighted each of what the women brought to the table and really showed off what Rise is all about, of just diversity and great women's wrestling. So 2 thumbs up to that one. It was definitely a fun match and a great way to kick the night off. Then we went into some tag team action as we had Team Sea Stars versus the New Nation. Charlie Evans, Jessica Troy, and they were accompanied by Zoe Lucas. You're going to quickly learn that the motto that I started in my prediction thread continues here. Never bet against Zoe. She's vastly probably becoming one of my top 5 women to watch that I enjoy watching, and having her even in the accompaniment role here, she was definitely an asset to the match. Adding that underhanded heel tactics that she does so well to the match. This was a great tag team match. Real good chemistry, real good psychology. There was lots of storytelling. Team Sea Stars, they just work amazingly together. They just flow through the ring, going from their individual efforts to their tag team efforts. The New Nation plays heels beautifully. They take their cheap shots. They distract the refs. They do what they need to do to get the job done and come out on top. And really, that is what you need in tag team wrestling. It was really enjoyable after all the poor tag team wrestling we've been getting on WWE. I was starting to lose faith in women's tag team wrestling. This match definitely restored my faith in women's tag team wrestling. It was that good. It was a very enjoyable match. There weren't any missed spots in it. All the women worked really well together. If you haven't seen this match, definitely I recommend going onto Fight TV, downloading the VOD, and checking it out if you like tag team wrestling. It was a great tag team match, and it is definitely worth the price of admission to check out. So that was another solid match early on in the night that I really enjoyed. It was fun. It was exciting. It had its high spots. It had its storytelling moments. Very well done. Then we had the 8-woman tag team match. This is a bittersweet one because it was Chris Wolf's last match at Rise. Because as many of you know, she is on her retirement tour right now, kind of doing her last hurrah, because injuries are forcing her to hang up the boots a bit earlier than should have been, given how young she is. So this match, we had Chris Wolf and her meat friends, which has ended up being Samantha Heights, and then 2 girls who impressed in the seminars they ran before the show. And that was an awesome part about this whole show, is the girls that came out for the seminar and did really well, they got a chance to really shine. And that was a credit to Rise for really, when they say they invest in the young talent, really showing that they invest in this such a big show and still being willing to put out these new girls who haven't had a chance yet at this like kind of exposure to really go out there and show what they can do. And in this match, the girls took full advantage of it. Most of the match early on was with them in it, taking bumps, giving bumps, doing their spots, being a part of other people's spots. And it was a great look for all of them, especially given the caliber of the team they were facing. We had Sue Young and her Legion of Undead Brides, which consisted of Kimberly, Hallie Cromwell, and Elena Black. So, I mean, this was no small-time match these girls were getting put into. This was a high-profile match. Everybody was excited for Chris Wolf's last Rise match. And, I mean, being in the ring with Sue Young, Kimberly, those are top-end talents that these girls are getting to work with. And that was really cool to see that they impressed so much to find a spot in this match, and they performed well. They all looked like they belonged there. Nobody looked out of place or intimidated by the spotlight that was being shown on them. This match was full of great wrestling and some crazy comedy spots that just were, I mean, they were hysterical. At one point, Kimberly busted out a carton of Brussels sprouts and sprinkled them across the ring as if they were thumbtacks. And then there was a superplex from the top rope into the Brussels sprouts. At one point, Kimberly was applying a submission hold to one of the meat friends, and Chris Wolf jumped in the ring and was choking her with a sausage. There was all kinds of zany stuff going on, but it wasn't so much that it took away from the match. They were done in the right spots to really enhance the match and not make you go, okay, this is getting a little corny now, or this is getting kind of on the dumb side of things. It was handled really well. It was mixed in between great wrestling spots, great high spots. So that was really well done. And Chris Wolf and her team did pick up the win for her last showing at Rise. So that was a nice send-off for her. It was a great match. And I like that Chris Wolf was willing to use the platform she had as her retirement match to put over some of this younger talent and give them a chance to shine. I thought that was awesome. That she cares enough about women's wrestling that even in her moment of kind of the farewell, to give that brush to these younger girls to be on her team and get a chance to be in the spotlight like that. I thought that was really cool. After that match, we had the grudge match of Shotzi Blackheart versus Delilah Doom, who had Rosemary at ringside with her, as she is the newest member of the Hive. I love Shotzi, but as my hat shows you, I can't go against the Hive. I had Delilah Doom for this one, which was technically the right pick, being that Delilah Doom did win by DQ. because Shotzi Blackheart ended up going up for a chair on the outside and taking it to Delilah to end the match and continue the feud the two of them have. Now, this match really showed just how tough Delilah Doom is. Early on in the match, there's a spot where they were outside of the ring. Shotzi came diving through the ropes, and as Delilah caught her, so that they protect her from a normal kind of dive thing, Delilah twisted her ankle, and you could tell it was hurting bad because the ref was going over to her. Constantly, she was limping around. You could tell she was grimacing at times, but even with a hurt ankle, she still pulled off a 619 and a baseball slide to the outside on Shotzi, which was incredible. And you could tell it hurt her because when she got back up on the apron and was talking to Rosemary, you could just read the pain all over her face. But she pulled herself back in the ring because she was not gonna go out that way. And it got to the point where I guess she couldn't continue because it seemed like the DQ was kind of like a last minute decision to kind of get to the ending they needed to get to without having to push it on her ankle much more. And you could tell the ankle was really hurting bad at the end because after she took the chair shots, Rosemary went to pull her out of the ring and grab the hurt ankle by mistake, and Delilah Doom just screamed quite loudly. And it was not the kind of acting, oh, I'm in pain scream. It was the, oh God, my foot's going to fall off kind of scream, which was very worrying because she got met by two other refs and Rosemary on the outside as she hobbled away, and they were meeting with ice packs. So that was kind of a worrisome moment for the Doomy one. But we have been updated on her Twitter that she is okay. Nothing's broken. It kept her out of the 2 Shimmer tapings this week, though, of 111 and 112, due to the injury that she couldn't work on it. But it didn't sound like there was going to be any long-lasting, effects from that injury, which is really good to hear. It was setting up to be a very good match. I'm looking forward to the rematch to finish off this feud or continue building the feud. But they were putting together a great match, and even with Delilah Doom being hurt, it was still a top quality match that I would definitely recommend being sure you check out and get some enjoyment from, because it was a very enjoyable match. After that, we were treated to the Battle Royal of 30 women. This was an enjoyable match. I mean, it was a Battle Royal. There's only so much you can do in the context of that. We saw a lot of great women come out. We saw a couple of little surprises. There's some legends coming back and things like that. Trying to think if there's any real big high points. Ariel Monroe started the match, and she was the last one in the match with Zoe Lucas before Zoe Lucas got the win. We did see the new nation of Charlie Evans and Jessica Troy show back up during this to offer some help to Zoe Lucas to keep things going for her and keep her moving in a way to pick up the win in the end by helping them tear down some of the people she needed to be tear down. We saw a lot of alliances made by Zoe Lucas that helped propel her to the top. The big takeaway is we learned that Zoe Lucas is the friendliest person in all of Rise, because everybody wanted to be her friend in this match and help her win it. She had Indy Hartwell working with her at one point. Facebook came out and took her mask off and was just Stephanie DeLar for the rest of the night, helping her out. And then, of course, she had the help of the other two when they showed up at ringside to do some dirty deeds for her. Very well done match. Zoe got the win at the end, which guaranteed her a shot of her choosing at the Phoenix of Rise Championships belt. So that was exciting for me, being that I called it as the match that Zoe Lucas was going to win, and it was the match she won because it's Zoe Lucas. Don't bet against her. Not smart. After that, we had the Guardians of Rise tag team match. This was a brutal match at points. You had the champions of Paradise Lost, Raven's Ash and Dust, with Rosemary at their side, versus the Killer Death Machines, Jessica Havoc and Nevia. Now, this match, I mean, it was going to be brutal because look at who's involved in it, and it was a great Rosemary rules, anything goes hardcore match for these championship belts. Early on, the Hive, Paradise Lost, had the advantage of Rosemary being there and being able to interfere, and that not being a cause of DQ in a match like this. So that worked to her advantage. There was lots of plywood that girls are being put through. There were chairs, there were chains. There were all kinds of things going on that were just brutal but enjoyable to watch. At one point, Rosemary did bring out a bunch of thumbtacks and was trying to drop Nevia and Jessica Havoc into them, but she was stopped by Cherry Bomb. The Slayer has returned and she is hunting the shadow again. That got an awesome pop, both from the crowd and from me, because it was awesome to see Cherry Bomb there. For those of you that follow Impact, and for those of you that don't, spoiler, the Allie character in the Impact side of the multiverse died that same night, almost at the exact same time that Cherry Bomb was showing up in Rise. So that was kind of a cool thing that played into the whole multiverse Demon Bunny that goes on. If you haven't checked out Demon X Bunny and the multiverse stuff, highly recommend it. It's really cool to see how Allie and Rosemary have built this entire multiverse to explain all their characters and the different interactions and the different places they show up in, and kind of make it a coherent story. It's really cool the lengths they've gone to build that brand and really put on a great story with it. So kudos to that. It was awesome to see Cherry Bomb was back as the Slayer. She ran Rosemary off, which left the tag teams on equal footing, which allowed the Killer Death Machines to pick up the win and become the new Guardians of Rise tag team champions. That was really cool. I was pulling for Paradise Lost just because I'm a loyal member of the Hive and enjoy pretty much all of them, but I'm also a Jessica Havoc fan and a Nevia fan, so it was a win-win for me. I'm excited to see who's going to end up challenging them, because that is a fearsome combination right there for the tag team champions for somebody to have to work their way through. So that will be interesting to see who will be able to upstart the Death Machine. We were announced after this match that at the next Rise IPPV, it will be Rosemary versus Cherry Bomb in a steel cage match. And their first steel cage match was amazing. So I'm expecting part 2 to be amazing. So we will definitely be tuning in for that and covering that as well. And then the night closed out with the main event for the Phoenix of Rise Championship in a no ropes submission only match between Mercedes Martinez, the current champion, and Kylie Rae. This match was phenomenal. The beating that Kylie Rae took was painful to watch at times, because you can't help but love Kylie Rae. She's just all smiles and rainbows and unicorns, and when you see somebody like Mercedes Martinez just beating up on her, it's just ugh. And the hits she was taking to those guardrails was just painful to watch, because she was being flung into them like there was no tomorrow. And we also got to see the great technical side of Kylie Rae as well, which we don't always get to see as much. There's a really cool spot where she had Mercedes in the ring and was giving her a crossface wrapped around one of the corner poles, and it looked brutal. It was a really cool visual. It looked really painful. And it was a really good, very brutal match that kind of left Kylie just looking like she was in trouble most of the match, but then she built the comeback and got the win and rose the Rise Championship over her head. It was a really great moment because earlier Kylie had said this was going to be her last Rise show she's going to be able to do for the foreseeable future. So to see her go out as the champion that way, to get that moment, to see the crowd just explode in excitement, to see how excited she was for it was amazing. But it didn't last long. I forget who it was, came out from the back, congratulated her, and then kind of hit her with an RKO. And Mercedes chased them out of the ring. And then as Kylie was getting back up, Zoe and the New Nation came out with a microphone. Zoe kind of congratulated Kylie, but then reminded everybody that she did just beat 30 women, and that made her the challenger for the belt, and she was allowed to cash in that challenge anytime she wanted to. Beautifully done heel. Great way for Zoe to get some heat on her. Great way to get the crowd really against her even more than they already had been, given all of her cheap tactics she's done all night long. This just, really just set them off to just really not liking her and setting her up as a very strong heel in Rise, and that is great to see. So she came in, had the match, beat Kylie Rae very quickly because Kylie Rae just endured this brutal match that we all were invested in, and the place erupted in boos, and Zoe was just eating it up. She picks up the mic, gets in Kylie Rae's face, and says, "You could say I just beat the Elite." Taking a shot at Kylie Rae, of course, being part of AEW. Well, as soon as she said that, music hits. Out walks Brandy Rose, Britt Baker, and Nyla Rose to help out their currently fallen teammate, who was getting stomped out by the New Nation in the ring. They hit the ring. The New Nation and AEW faced off in the ring, and a brawl broke out, which quickly led to the New Nation scurrying to the back as Kylie Rae was helped to her feet by her AEW sisters. Then Kylie and Nyla, who have a big match coming up at Double or Nothing, kind of got into a scuffle, but were broken up by Britt Baker and Brandy. Penelope Ford hit the ring along with Allie, so you had all the women of AEW in the ring, holding up Kylie for her victory and her goodbye to Rise to close out the show. It was really well done. It hit all the high points it needed to hit. It built new people up. That was the great part of this match, was you had Mercedes Martinez, who's a legend of women's wrestling, putting over Kylie Rae and showing us a toughness and a brutal side to Kylie that we don't get to see that often, because she's usually not in those kinds of matches where you really see the kind of brutality that came out of this match not having any ropes and the guardrails and Mercedes just working her over. And then we saw them bring Zoe out and really build Zoe up and gave her a great rub by putting her toe-to-toe with some of the best women currently in women's wrestling that AEW has and giving her that shine. It really elevated her and the story that they're telling with her to heights that I don't think would have been there had they not had all those dynamics in play. It was a great pay-per-view. If you haven't checked it out, I'd highly recommend you go and do it. But that is my my feedback on the pay-per-view. Can't wait for the next Rise pay-per-view. Can't wait for that cage match. Can't wait to see what they do with Zoe Lucas as their champion and what stories they tell with that and who the challengers for that belt are going to be, along with what it's going to look like as the New Nation is being built up around her there in Rise. Really exciting times to be a fan of women's wrestling. So many good shows happening this weekend and next weekend. Gonna try to cover as many as we can, but let us know what you thought of Rise Legendary in the comments below. Love to hear your thoughts, your feedbacks, and your cries of outrage. Hit the like button, hit the sub button, so you can be kept up to date on all the news, all of our opinions, and what's going on in the world of Divas Unleashed. Again, I'm Gary Cook, and this was Divas Dive.